Hey, this is Troy from Cape Ann Conversations, and today I've got Joli from Studio in the Farms. Thank you for coming here. And
you're welcome.
I'm going to kick it over to you. I want you to tell everybody about Studio in the Farms, number one, and how you got there. Not a Cape Ann native, a transplant like myself. I'm from Michigan, for those that didn't know, but I moved here in 2016.
Right, and I moved here from Virginia about almost 6 years ago. So from southwestern Virginia. I grew up in Roanoke, and a life change happened, and I was very familiar with Cape Ann, its artistic traditions, and I felt like it was a good place for me to land. So, but I am Joli Wood. I'm an artist, I'm an oil painter, and I paint what inspires me. So Studio in the Farms is a new studio location for me. It's not the first studio I've had. I did have a professional public studio in a little town called Floyd in Virginia before I moved here. And after moving here, I had a summer studio in Essex at Cedar Hill Farm. And then that led to a studio in Rockport. And I was there for a couple years, about 2.5 years. And then I decided, you know what, I had some students. I didn't really have room to teach them, and I didn't have room for my business to expand. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to walk to work? So I live in Beverly, Massachusetts, and I was able to find a small cottage near the Beverly Farms Depot and have turned that into my new public studio, my creation space, my teaching space, my business space, and I get to walk to work now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the different services that you provide, because you yourself are a painter.
Yes.
But that's half of what you do. There's a whole nother half of what you do too. And I want you to talk about your painting, your expertise, and what you like to do. But tell everybody about all the other different services you do. You mentioned teaching as one of them.
Do you want me to start with the art, or where would you like for me to start?
Some of the art stuff first, yeah.
Okay.
Like with the students, with the studio, and then maybe even more so into like sort of the art management. That you do.
Okay. Well, I started painting in 2003. I majored in art history. I was more of an academic, but the painting is what stuck. I was in the corporate world for about 30 years, and then when I started painting, I just didn't stop. And eventually I was on the hobby horse of, painting versus corporate world, and the painting won out. And during the pandemic, I was up here in Massachusetts by that time. I just took a long, hard look at my life and thought, you know what, if I don't go forward with the arts, when the heck am I going to do this? So I love plein air painting. I love painting out of doors. I love painting indoors as well. But that's just one facet of what I do, and it's one facet of what Studio in the Farms is all about. My little cottage in the farms, I do a lot of teaching there. I paint on my own there, obviously, but I have private students of all ages. And some are from within the neighborhood, and some of them drive quite a ways to get there. So that's nice that people are seeking me out. I also teach at the Council on Aging in Topsfield. Been doing that for about 3 years, and I do that twice a month. And that's sort of my little art lab. I learned how to do things and test things out. And then I also have another facet that is more service-oriented, art services. Over the last year, people have found that I'm pretty entertaining with painting demonstrations. So what does that involve? That involves me going and setting up somewhere, whether it's like the Cape Ann Chamber Gala last January. I was there painting for the group. Sometimes I'll paint for the art associations. Rockport Arts Association, I've painted for them twice. And other times it's like tomorrow, I'll be painting at the Beverly Homecoming Festival, the Lobster Fest. They invited me to paint in the Rose Garden at Lynch Park, 1 o'clock tomorrow, so I'll be there displaying what I do, and I'll also have some things for sale, obviously. But I also found that my corporate management experience has paid off pretty well with helping organizations to do some creative bits and pieces of maybe festivals or get-togethers that weren't always creative. For instance, the Rockport Garden Tour. I've been helping them organize Artists in the Gardens for the last few years. This year we had a record number of artists in the gardens painting on the day of the tour. And my role with that is really just to make sure the artists are happy and to make sure they know what they have to do, where they're doing it, when they're doing it, and to make sure that the organizations know what's going on. I also do rather large things. For instance, like the Floyd Plein Air Biennial, that'll be coming up at the end of September, and that's back in my home state of Virginia, and my adopted hometown of Floyd, Virginia, and 35 artists from all across the nation for a whole week. So I love I love bringing art into the community, and everything that I do through Studio in the Farms and with my I guess my drive comes with connecting artistic opportunities within the community and ways of bringing painting or creation and the joy and the peacefulness that comes from that with the general public. So bringing it into a bigger stage, bringing it into a more public environment, and making it very accessible to folks.
And you mentioned you work with people of all ages. You're working with some younger students. You're also working with some older students that are coming in and actually painting inside your studio in the farms. Correct.
So I have, I currently teach in traditional oils, water mixable oils, acrylics, although acrylics are the bane of my existence. And I also do simple things like drawing, many different techniques of drawing from charcoal to pencil. So it's really what the artist wants. I also have a couple of folks who come and they pay just to have me critique their work. They're professional painters, and they just want to get a second eye on it and get a professional opinion. They work in a lot of different mediums, and I'm come at it from the standpoint of their technique. Did they use their materials properly and what their composition is? With a more global eye, or maybe a judgmental and critical eye. So there's a lot of different reasons people come to the farms. I also love just to have my door open on a Friday or a Saturday, or by chance during the week, and people can stop in and see what's going on. I do have art out in the yard, hanging, and which has brought a lot of attention to that little part of Beverly Farms. And the locals, they know I'm there, and they've been very embracing, definitely.
You know, there's the maybe not so accurate like starving artist terminology out there. Where do you think the artists on Cape Ann are having success in getting exposure and getting found? If they're newer into the art community, how does somebody break into that?
You have to say yes a lot.
Yeah.
You have to say yes for a full year to everything that comes across your door. You want to do this? We're looking for an artist to do that or this, even if it's outside of your comfort zone. It was the best advice ever given to me about going into the arts. You have to say yes a lot. You have to show up for your fellow artists. Even if you didn't get into the show, you were turned down. Even if you don't win the awards, and you just have to keep showing up and supporting your fellow artists. And eventually they see that. And that does make a bit of a difference. The other thing, and probably one of the most meaningful bits of advice I received in my career and my career spans a lot of different things. And I was sitting on an airplane in first class because I was in the corporate world, and so I had first class. And I was on a pleasure trip to Arizona to paint with friends. And I looked a little bit like Crocodile Dundee, probably. I had my painting clothes on. I had paint all over me. Fairly put together, but here I am sitting in first class. And there was an older gentleman sitting next to me, and he said, "So, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm an executive advisor and consultant for a small group service provider out of Wakefield, Mass, and I help smaller banking institutions do big things with their payment systems." And he says, "No, but what do you really do?" And he said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Well, I'm a painter." And I pulled out this fancy dancy card that had images of my art on it and a little blurb about me. And I handed it to him, and he said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I'm going to paint with friends in Arizona for a week." He said, "Why didn't you lead with that?" And that stuck with me. He said, "The minute you lead with that, your life will change." And he was right. And I've said that to I don't know how many people out there. And there's a lot of people out there listening today, or just one. Until there is something to the whole fake it until you make it scenario. And I'm not saying being fake, but you have to be genuine, and you have to put yourself out there, and you have to be willing to show the tender underbelly of yourself and be passionate about what you do. And that's what I've been doing more and more and more. The older I get, I realize, if you don't speak for yourself, who else is going to do that? So you just have to say yes a lot, and you have to show up, and you have to be willing to do things maybe you're not real jazzed about or things that maybe you don't think you can do, but then you get there and you realize, wow, this wasn't so bad. I could do that. You have to put fear in the back seat and just take charge.
I think that's why people say you really should be passionate in what you do. It's not necessarily that you have to come at every single event or experience with this extreme like and passion. It's more like you have to like what you're doing enough to want to go there at 7:00 at night to this event when you could be doing something else with your friends or family or something too, and like it enough to want to show up to that relentlessly for enough time to make your business work.
Right, you do. And I think that's the same with anything. You really have to have a passion for what you do. You have to be genuine. One of the best compliments I've ever had was delivering a commissioned work to somebody. I'd driven several miles to do it, and when I got to the doorstep and introduced myself, took the work in, and sat down and had a drink with these folks, they said, "Wow, you're just like you were on the phone, and you're just like you were on social media. You're just really just who you say you are." And I think you just have to lead with that. You have to lead with who you are. You also have to do you. And that's something that's been a challenge for me, a real challenge. And I think that, there's that herd mentality, especially if, dropping into the ocean, this huge ocean of art up here with this huge heritage and how important it is and how much respect I have for it. And then to drop yourself into this vast ocean of all of these amazing artists, some of whom I call close friends now, and have the wherewithal to say, well, maybe that's not how I paint, and just keep doing what you're doing and believing in what you do.
The authenticity will come through.
Yeah,
when you're doing
at some point.
Your way.
At some point it will. And you just have to, in the beginning, you have to say yes a lot, but you have to be your authentic self. And until you are, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I think everybody can appreciate that. It'll make waking up in the morning every day just that much easier. When
I bet you do.
Authentically that way.
I bet, because you mentioned before this that you had a life change yourself, or a business change and a career change yourself. And,
yes, I'm a recovering banker myself, as I like to explain it. And I was in a similar boat, faking it till you make it. Had a few like vending machines on the side, had a couple
Right.
e-commerce businesses on the side, and you're just grinding through them. But when you have that paycheck that's really, covering everything, and until you lose that, how far can you really take something?
Right.
And that's what happened to me. I lost my bank job, and I
It's
wasn't.
probably the best thing to ever happen to you.
That's what everyone keeps telling me.
Yeah.
I wasn't even laid off for 3 hours, and I was already working on making an acquisition that could allow me to do this full time,
Right.
which allowed me to be my own boss. And it is rapidly snowballing from there. And it's definitely more work on the day-to-day basis. But never in my career of banking was I jazzed to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and work until 10:30 at night. The way that and miss lunch and dinner and be as excited as I am in this position.
Well, I think the only exclusion to that for myself, I used to travel a lot for a living. The last 10 years, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad it's over. You pretty much have to drag my butt onto the plane now. I don't travel well now, but I did for 10 years. And, I'd get up in the morning and there's a big difference in no slide against Cleveland. There's a big difference between flying to Cleveland to do business and flying to Bermuda to do business. And I was lucky to be able to do both. So,
Yes.
but you lean into it and you do it. And then, I believe that life has chapters, and mine has had a lot of chapters, and I'm excited to see what Studio in the Farms does. It was a huge gamble. People in Rockport, when I made the decision to move, they said, "You're crazy." And who knows, maybe I'll go back at some point. But I really love the little cottage and the farms, and I feel really strongly about it.
So how can this community support you if we have passionate listeners that are looking to expand their experience in painting? If they're an experienced painter and they want to get critiqued, if they, if a town or someone has a need for someone to come in and do a live painting instruction, what else? How?
All of those things.
Okay.
All of those things, really. And a lot of things that we probably haven't even dreamed up yet.
Yeah.
So anything artistic related. I have a consultative brain, and I have a way of looking at things differently. I was an art major, but I was in corporate banking for 30 years. And when you have that sort of creative mind, you look at things differently and you slice the apple differently. And so I would say to those out there, if you've wanted to get creative and you've never done it before, I teach from beginner stages. If you've ever wanted to just play with paint, maybe you're going through some sort of a recovery and you need somebody to offer some creative exercises to help you get through that. It can be something very personal like that in terms of lessons, individual lessons. I charge by the hour. And each student of mine has very personal goals. Or if you have either a business maybe that wants some sort of a corporate activity at your next offsite, hire an artist. Whether it's me or not, hire somebody to come and do something creative, something that offers a certain amount of calm and works a different side of the brain. Consider that for your next offsite. And also just, the townships and the cities around. Consider a creative option for your get-togethers. Consider including artists for a festival. There are a lot of art festivals around, or there are festivals that have a sales component, but what about a painting component? And, we love Cape Ann Plein Air. It's a fabulous event that happens every year in October. But there are a lot of ways to encourage community arts. I think the art associations do a good job of that. But I also think individual artists need to let people know, and that's what I'm doing. I'm here. So I do a lot of things.
I like that. Where can people find you? The actual studio itself, does it have hard hours, or is it by chance?
It's usually open by appointment or by chance, and that is something that's been on my sign since the day I opened my studio many years ago. Simply because a lot of times I'm there, and sometimes I'm not, but many times I'm there. But people can get in touch with me. Probably the easiest way, you can find me on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Are you all going to show the URLs on the screen at all?
We're going to share all of that ourselves too, directly through the chamber.
You can also go to my website. My website's pretty thorough. It's jolianwood.com, JOLIAYNWOOD.com, or studiointhefarms.com. It's a little easier to remember and spell. That has all the information as well. And but if you Google me, you can usually find me. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Jolianne, I appreciate you coming on here and what you're doing in the
Tony.
art community. Hopefully we'll have you back again soon.
That'd be great. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.